Today we're going to be talking about training and onboarding remotely for this Trust Talk series. I think this is something we all have realized is in our future, probably for the foreseeable future, as we aren't really sure if things are going to go back fully in person yet, what that looks like. And so the idea behind this Trust Talk is really to provide you with some resources and tips on some things that we've seen work really well, on some things that Nathan has seen work really well, or things that haven't worked really well in the past year, and kind of just have a conversation and talk through these questions with you. So I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Casey Hunter. I'm a business services manager here at B2B Serving Central Oklahoma. And so some of the things I'm going to touch on is really just generally my perspective as somebody who worked in a hybrid office, an online office, and everything in between, and some things I experienced that worked really well for our teams, and things that maybe you should think about implementing if you haven't already. And then Nathan's going to talk about some resources and technology tips that businesses should be thinking about. So before we dive into the questions, Nathan, will you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you?
Sure. Hi, I am Nathan Howell. I am the VP of Sales and Development for Advantec Solutions. We are a 25-year-old IT solutions company. We provide managed services for our clients on a monthly basis. We basically become their IT department. They don't just call us and tell us to reboot their computers. That's not all that we do. We do a lot more than that. We handle the networking, servers. We're now into voice over IP. So anything to do with technology, we can handle that.
So a lot of things that, I'll be honest, I don't know a whole lot about. So I'm excited to be able to have this conversation with you today to unpack that. Of course, over the past year, we have all been we've all dove into this technical world, right? Because we had to make our businesses survive. We had to find a way to connect with consumers who no longer could visit our office spaces and help them understand that we were still here, still a part of the community, and that we still wanted to interact with them, provide them services and tools and different things. And I think that we probably learned a lot about the resources that have worked really well. So I think this is a good opportunity to unpack those. A little bit more about how we're going to do the event. We're about to dive into questions, and then if you have questions, feel free to pop them up in the chat during the event, or if you want to hold them to the end, we'll kind of do like a live Q&A and work through those together. So first up, what is the biggest challenge that you see small business owners struggle with, particularly surrounding remote work?
Yeah, so there's quite a few, unfortunately. When this thing started, a lot of small businesses were just like, hey, how do we survive? We've got to keep the ball rolling. We've got to keep business going as usual, but how do we do it? And once we kind of worked past that point, it came to challenges with communication. Communications, knowing what the other guy is doing, what your team is working on, trying to stay on top of things. And it's important. I mean, I've got an example there, and it's not really business related, but it's kind of a neat story about how important communication is. There was a team of online gamers who challenged a U.S. Army infantry group that trained together all the time. These gamers were going to do a paintball game, and they were very good at communication because for hours a day, they're on their comm links telling it, hey, watch out for this guy, look over there, I'll meet you around the corner. So when they met on the paintball field, this online gaming team and this, Army infantry team went to battle in a paintball war. So in the first round, the online gamers wiped out the entire platoon. It was something that was done with a very quickly, and anyways, it was. But the key was that they were used to communication and they were used to working with each other on a regular basis. The only way you do that is spending time together. So communication is a big challenge. Distractions at home, those things are always something you have to think about, whether it's now you've got the kids who aren't in school, you've got projects that are unfinished. Is that taking away from what you're doing, for your job? Things like that. IT security. Now you're working on a whole other network at home, which we don't know is secure compared to the work environment where your servers may have firewalls and things like that. So you run into a lot of these things that you just have to think about continuously, and you have to try to work on. So
great. And we apologize if you could hear that alarm going off. Sometimes things just happen, but we hope that you can still hear what Nathan's talking about and really keep communication. So I love what you said, that we're communicating with our teams at all times. So what communication tools have you seen, maybe other than Zoom, that a business could implement or try out if they haven't already?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that we've utilized and that our clients have utilized, but we actually took a tip from the online gamers. There are programs and software that you can use. One is called Mattermost. Another one is called Discord. It's what gamers use to use chat. They can chat through their headphones or they can use text. So that's something that we've recommended and that we've used on a daily basis to kind of stay ahead of things and make sure we know who's got assigned to what. And it's been game changing. It's a big, yeah.
So I have actually heard a little bit about Discord.
Yeah.
And something I had never heard about before,
Mhm.
and probably the gamer guys are out here doing like a big picture, like
Yeah.
we've known about this technology for a
Been
long
using that for
time.
years. Yeah.
But something that maybe a business could look into implementing. If not, I'll tell you one communication tool that has really been unreal for our team in terms of changing things up has been Microsoft Teams. And this isn't a plug for Microsoft Teams, maybe it's not for you, but we realized that we had so many different projects and things that were going on from a day-to-day basis, and we weren't in the office together. It wasn't the same as like being able to reach around the corner and say, hey, I'm working on this project. Do you have 5 minutes to troubleshoot with me? It's, well, now I've got a kid at home and I'm not going to be available for the next 2 hours. So we're going to have to figure out a way to communicate in a way that's simple and fast.
Mhm.
And so Microsoft Teams have really helped us almost like in a texting way to chat through those. So that's been really great.
Absolutely.
What tools and resources are available to help a non-techie business? And we probably know that there's a lot of them out there. My mind specifically goes to maybe some folks who are in like tool belt trades and who are out there in the field every day. They don't have time to be like on social media or on Zoom calls. It's not their forte, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are some tools and resources that you have for those types of businesses who could move their businesses online or be more digitally friendly?
So there's a lot of things you can do, but specific to resources, I mean, they're all out there. We've probably all heard of them anyways. I mean, you've got ways like through Google My Business. You want to make sure that information's up to date, especially if your hours have changed. Pandemic kind of got everybody on a different shift, a different time frame. Keep that updated. Make sure the information's relevant. Unfortunately, some businesses had to close and they're having to put on there, this isn't us, but we've teamed up with somebody else. This is where you can find us. So it's keeping that presence and that brand, that company brand online and active, and Google sees that as relevant. So they keep you, at the top of the list as long as you can stay active in what you're posting and what you're doing, whether it's a blog or keeping your website updated, things like that. When you're shifting to online business, trying to automate as much as you can, whether it's accepting credit cards on your website, which that can get a little complicated, but there are services out there which I can, Clover Security is one of the companies that we recommend talking to about getting PCI compliant. It's payment card industry. It's 12 different requirements on how you handle credit cards, security procedures, things like that. If you can do that, it actually reduces your cost from your credit card processor. So it saves you money and it gives you an ability to automate your payments online. Other than that, like you said, a lot of businesses don't have time to do social media. There are companies, you can third party that out to people that are working from home that can, post content, whether it's pictures or, articles that they've written and keep that social media presence. You have to be on social media. It's just a part of life now. That's how people, they find you on Google, but they're going to check you out before they spend a dime with you. And if you don't have current content, they're going to think, well, what happened to this company? Are they still around? Did the pandemic put them out? We don't know. So you've got to keep putting that stuff out there to let people know that you're still around, you're still relevant, and you're here to do business.
Wonderful, yeah. And adding to that, more from like a B2B perspective and going online and different things, there are standards that our accredited businesses meet, one of them being like a privacy policy, and making sure, like you're talking about credit cards, it's really important to make sure that we're being mindful of data protection and data security. We can talk a little bit about that, but here's another plug. Nathan did an event with us last year, and we talked all about data security and privacy, and that it was eye-opening for me.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so, data security is a big thing. I mean, we are all using, as we work from home, remote desktop. We're remoting into our computers. Well, that's kind of how hackers get into remote systems. They're pounding you with tons of algorithms and passwords, just hoping that one hits. And it can destroy a company. And we've talked about this before, where, if you get hit with a ransomware or some kind of virus, the likelihood of a small business surviving that, after 6 months is only about 40%. So 60% of those businesses go out of business because of something that was totally controllable. I mean, it's dangerous, the amount of power that these guys have, but these criminals, and they're not even here. They could be worldwide. They could be, China, Russia, anywhere. It doesn't matter, but they're pounding the system every day, and there are resources out there, but it's something that, as long as you're taking precautions and doing what you have to do, there's ways to mitigate that and slow it down. But cyber crime itself is growing by leaps and bounds. I mean, we're hitting trillions of dollars in losses every year now. It used to be a few hundred million, then billions, and now it's getting to the point where NATO has declared the internet a cyber warfare, a part of warfare now. So if you attack a country with cyber warfare, they consider it an act of war. So it's serious. It's military and I think the Washington D.C. police just got hit with ransomware. Houston Rockets just got hit here recently. So whether you're big or small businesses are just as susceptible to that type of attack as the big guys. So.
Sure. I mean, there's value behind it for those hackers, right?
Oh yeah.
Which is it's hard sometimes, especially when we've already lived through the stress of the pandemic.
I know.
And then you're talking about the high percentage of businesses who go out of business because of that, and we are already dealing with enough financially and just keeping our doors open.
Well, and that's what's unfortunate. They're using the pandemic as a way to get people to click on their phishing emails, go to their websites, to access the information that they know now that they can use to hurt the people that are just trying to help themselves. And it's unfortunate because they're targeting those who are at their weakest moment, and then they're taking advantage of them. They're wanting Bitcoin to pay off the ransomware. Now someone has to figure out how to get a Bitcoin account. Yeah, it's like, where do I start? But you're on a time frame, and they're telling you have 48 hours or we're deleting all your stuff. And it's like, if you don't have backups, if you don't have ways to defend against that, it's like I said, it's kind of like the wild, wild west on the internet right now. You got to be very careful.
Sure. And another resource from BBB, because I always like to tell our audience about those. If you're worried that you might be experiencing or going through a phishing, smishing, or some other type of scam, we do have a scam tracker on bbb.org, bbb.org/scam tracker that you can check out. I'll link some of that information and some follow-ups for attendees today so you can check out. But a great resource if you're just not sure exactly what's going on and you want to check maybe that phone number or the person who's reaching out to you to see if it is a scam and maybe somebody reported it, and you can hopefully avoid that. That's what we're here for. It's a great resource.
Great tool. Yep.
Great.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
Okay. I just had a quick question.
Sorry. It's like, what? Sorry, we've got a question.
Because since we've moved to a remote workforce, and this is obviously something that people at their homes are now having to navigate, and as an employer, what would be your suggestion as far as helping people figure out, is your home secure? How do you, potentially send an IT person to their house to look at their setup or help them figure out what's the best way to secure your home Wi-Fi or getting that installed. So, and then how do you do training for your team going forward? Because these things are always changing.
Yep. Yeah. And to your point, the IT industry, especially a managed service provider, we doubled our workload. Because you've got now a home network, another device, now Someone's personal phone may also be used for their work emails. Now we've got to make sure that's secure. And it's getting in and testing it out, and then making sure that they have the right device, whether it's a firewall, an external device, whether it's in their computer. But that's a lot of legwork on the front end. I mean, that's why we say, especially nowadays, after this whole last year, you've got a budget, you've got to have a little bit set aside for IT management. Whether you have someone in-house or someone who's really good that can study up on it and give you some good advice, or you hire it out to a third party, or you hire an actual IT person. I can tell you there's all sorts of different costs that vary with that, but you have to send somebody out, or you have to remote into their computer, get permissions, check it out. I mean, that's what we had to do. We had to make sure that if they're using a laptop, if they're using a tablet, if they're using their cell phone, is it secure? Are they using good policies when it comes to responding to the emails they're getting? And a lot of our clients are at the point to where they will test their own employees. They will send fake, or what we call, it's a simulation of a phishing email. And if they click on it and they show that, oh yeah, this employee clicked on this, well, that could have cost you $300,000 right there. They could have held all your data for ransom. And because they're tied in to your server and to your network, and depending on if they're set as an administrator, that's the whole company. And those ransomware programs are locking things up, and you can't get into them unless you have the passcode. And to try to get that is, even the FBI will tell you it's impossible to do it most of the time, just because it's so fast, and it can be detrimental to the whole company if you're not ready for it. So
wow, yeah. Great feedback.
Yeah, it's great.
And I think that this is another reminder to, as a business owner, be thinking about having those conversations with your employees to say, hey, this is a fishy type of email. And I can recall a specific instance for me where our leadership team came and said, hey, there's an email going around that says it's from our CEO saying that we need you to buy gift cards, and you need to do it within the next 24 hours. Know that we would never do that, and please do not click on that link in the email. But for maybe a newer employee who doesn't quite know what to expect out of your team, that might be something that could really catch them off guard. And they say, well, I want to make my boss proud, so yeah, I'll go buy these cards, and then you're in a mess, right?
Yeah, and it happens all the time. It's fake invoices from Amazon, inquiries from different websites that you just did, and they make it look so real. They're so good, but you have to look at links. You have to look at where the hyperlinks send you. Instead of clicking on it, just run the mouse over it, take a read. It doesn't say anything about Amazon or the company that sent it. It's fake, and they're trying to fish your information, and it's not just emails. And they'll call you. They will, you click a link that says, hey, your computer needs repair, call this number and we'll get it fixed for you. Well, the next thing you know, now they're calling you constantly. Hey, well, now there's another fix that needs to be done, and another fix. It's $250 every time. And then you have these poor people and businesses that just assume, well, I don't have an IT company. They said they could fix it. This red, blinking sign keeps coming up, driving me crazy. So I'll just do what I have to do. And not until their bank account's empty do they finally call someone and say, is this real? That's unfortunate.
That's tough. Yeah. So switching gears a little bit, we talked a little bit about data, and I think you and I could nerd out probably on that all day long.
Yeah.
But what are the benefits of maybe hiring a remote employee? And now businesses probably didn't have a whole lot of a choice maybe on certain positions, and that's great. And I've got a few things to add, but let's start with you.
Yeah, so the benefits of hiring, there's a lot of benefits, and it's kind of a sought after position right now. It's not too hard to find people that are willing, but so you've got the benefit of overhead. If you're hiring remote workers, we had a client who figured out that once they were able to work from home, they were paying $10,000 a month in rent. Well, they're looking at their next 5-year lease contract going, man, I wonder if we should do that. Should we, everybody's doing well. Our numbers are getting better. Things are looking up. So maybe we can just give everybody a raise versus paying rent, which I'd be all for that. So that's always a benefit. But other benefits, resources, things like that. I think in some cases, a lot of people are more receptive to working from home and will do a better job. And I think if you think about it, and a lot of our clients have said that too. It's like we find an uptick in production. And I think it's because they know that if there's a decrease in production, there's a risk of either coming back to the office or sitting or getting fired. I mean, that could always happen too. But I think you'll find that people will work a little harder, knowing that they can stay there. So things become a little bit more efficient. And pay scale. I mean, you don't have to drive to work now. You're not using your car as much. So you can almost offer a different pay scale. We actually did an interview. We're hiring for a customer service rep right now. And she told me, she's like, if I don't have to work nights and weekends, I'll take a pay cut because now I can be at home with the kids. My weekends are free and I don't have to do so much. So yeah, I may go from, 19, 20 bucks an hour down to 14, 15 bucks an hour because that gap now is being saved by all the other stuff I would have to do. And my time and the schedule is a lot better than what they're used to. So
It's the flexibility for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And there's been a lot of blogs and articles and things, and I'm happy to link some and resources to follow up about why employees now kind of demand more flexibility in positions because, right, like we've had more than our fair taste of it over the past year, and that's been fantastic. But we at B2B, we have hired some folks who are fully remote over the past year, and we've hired some folks who are now coming kind of back into the office who got to experience a fully remote workforce. But something that was really awesome for our team is the diversity of staff that we could recruit because we could reach a wider audience, right? Like we can have somebody who isn't necessarily in our greater metro area who has other experiences who wants to work remotely.
Yeah, bigger pool of prospects.
Yeah.
That's what I was searching for earlier. When we looked for a new employee, we just didn't have to stay in this geographical region. We could look for people that may have had more experience, but lived in Florida or lived in another, city, town that was just, they were looking to just change the scenery or work just from home for that time. And now we're getting applicants from all over the US. And you have, now I will say you have a bigger pool, so you've got to be careful with, okay, now how do I, go through there and pick the cream of the crop? But that's another problem. You can always figure that out.
Sure, and there's a lot of tips and resources online that can help you kind of narrow those things down. And something else that I will also link a resource to, because I think it's important to note that there is potential for employers to have people apply for a position and it could be a scam. Like it's not even the person on the other end. So there's some things that you can do for your business in particular to make sure you're setting up processes and procedures so that doesn't happen. Yeah, let's move on to the next question, but I'm sure we can add some things as we're working through. So, and I'll take the first end on this question, and then I'll kind of let you follow.
You got it.
How do I recruit remote employees? So this is something that our team had kind of talked a little bit about before we had kicked off today's event. And it's not that we at BBB, for example, over the past year have changed how we're recruiting. We're still recruiting in the same places. We're still, revamping job descriptions or whatever it is, just like we typically would for any position that we're hiring for. But we're changing the conversation on how we're talking to those potential employees and being really clear about the expectations that we're setting from the get-go, which I think is so very important for this kind of unstable marketplace, if you will, for recruiting a potential employee. So are you going to be working fully remote? Yes, we're going to let you know from the very beginning. We are never going to have you in the office. This is the expectation that we're setting, and you do have flexibility in your schedule. And here's how you report that to your supervisor. And it's dependent on the type of position that you're working in. So maybe a certain position, we might need you to be in the office because that's what your job demands. But maybe somebody who's more project oriented. So I'll use myself as an example. That's, I do events, right? And so for me, days that I need to be in the office are days that I need to work through events. And so I need to coordinate that with my supervisor, but those expectations are really clear from the get-go. And so I know how to prepare for that in my role. So what do you want to add to that? How?
Yeah, I think, get specific. Like you said, you want to make sure the job description is very clear, spell it out. But again, when you're at the point that where you're getting so many applicants, it's hard to kind of fish through them all. We do a performance test. So we have a link to where if we're hiring for a tech job where we know that they have to know this amount of information and the test is set at a certain time, if you can't finish the test in 45 minutes and half of them are wrong, that's kind of, we know it's kind of like the litmus test. You just set it aside and that's not a good candidate right now. So, but you can almost do that with any position. You just have to know specifically what the duties are, whether it's someone who can type fast, have them do a typing test. Let's see how good they are at that. Customer service, do they have testimonials? Do they have ways that they can send? Of course, references and all that is always a good thing, but I think there's a lot of ways you can get creative on hiring the best candidate and making sure that you get someone that's a good fit for your organization. Definitely kind of let them know what the just kind of the feel and how the business, I don't know, personality is.
The culture.
Yeah, the culture. There we go. That's, and that's through conversations. I mean, you have to have. So I wouldn't have one interview and hire them on the spot. I multiple interviews, 2, 3, 4. Do video. In some cases, like through Indeed, they're typically $4 an application, but they have the ability to read a script, record it. They have the ability to answer the questions, record it, and then you're able to listen to those without having to do a full interview. So you can kind of see the tone. You can feel if it's are they high energy, low energy. There's a lot of good resources out there. And again, it just depends on what you're looking to what kind of person you're looking to hire, but what position too, because like Craigslist may be good because it's very local and it's very kind of almost like just posting an ad. But all these, Facebook is a great free one. They've got lots of ways of getting questions on there and information to you. Same deal, you can record something and send it through there. We got a lot of applicants when we were hiring through there, and some of our clients, they use it exclusively. So.
And you want to be in those different spaces
Definitely.
as a business owner because it's different people on those different platforms, and that's so important.
Yeah.
But going back to your just point before we move on to the next sub question about doing a performance test. That's also going to help if you're doing if you're hiring for a remote employee and you've got 150 applications, which is not uncommon, I will tell you, in remote jobs specifically right now. People want those positions, and since they can be anywhere in the United States and apply for a position, they're going to give it a shot, right? Yeah. But that's also going to help you wean out some of those applications, which I think is a great tip.
And quite frankly, on some of the like on Facebook, we had probably 90 applicants. We requested information from about 40 of them, and we only got about 10 of them that responded. So again, that tells me, okay, well, I don't have to worry about these other 20, 30, 80. So if you want a responsive employee, you want someone that is good at communication, you can tell pretty quick from how fast they respond and how fast they can give that information back to you. And again, that itself is its own test. How good are they at these things that you are looking for in a candidate?
So now that we have gone through the hoops of interviewing somebody and we've applied online and we've done all of these things, how do we make our businesses more remote friendly? Yeah.
So I think you offer incentives, for the employees, but also, now are we talking hiring or are we talking just remote friendly?
Yeah. How do we have new remote employees. How do we make it easy for them to do their job?
Yeah. So, it's funny. There's some quick little things that we like to do that are kind of fun, but like if it's something where employees like the free stuff, the coffee and the atmosphere,
the snacks.
Yeah, send them K-cups of their favorite flavor to keep them motivated. Give them a little bit of a personalized treat, just to say, hey, you would be doing this if you were here. We're going to send it to you just to say, hey, thanks, keep up the good work. A lot of times our clients are giving them laptops and iPads and making sure that some of their internet is paid for so that, it's an incentive for them to keep good work coming in and keep them productive. And it's not so much out of pocket expense on them. There's so many things you can do. It's just finding that niche and finding what works for that particular person is always good too. But yeah.
On the flip side of that, you're getting a laptop, you're getting a mouse and all those things. Something to think about as a business is to make sure that those are maybe like written in your handbook, like the policies that you have on those. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. And you have an upfront cost for those things too.
Sure.
So
it's not cheap, right?
No. And you might set the policy at a certain time frame that your first check will not be given until we know that you've been utilizing this, this IT hardware and the things that we provided for you. or we may hold a certain amount in case things break or something happens that wasn't the fault
A
of the company.
deposit.
Yeah, basically a deposit. But there's so many things you can do to make sure that you as a business aren't out of pocket to the extent that, oh, we got to keep buying these computers that people keep breaking, and we set the policy, but make it a policy and make sure they understand before, because they're like, well, I didn't know you were holding money on my check for this. That's not something I was
Sure.
prepared for. That's
So those expectations.
yeah, expectations, communication. You got to keep all those coming.
So if you're not, one more tip here, and then we'll move on to the next question. If you're not sure how to do that or work it into your handbook, reach out to your legal team and have them help you set those guidelines, because you want to make sure it's on point.
Yes.
It's good to go.
Yeah.
Next question. What technology trends? I'm so excited about this question in particular because it's changed a lot, right? Like
Yeah.
Zoom 2019,
Yeah.
Zoom 2021. Oh yeah, I know how to use Zoom, right?
Oh,
So what technology trends are you seeing businesses utilize as a result of this past year?
yeah, and it's changed. I mean, you're seeing a lot more cloud services now. You've got Amazon Web Service. So basically what that means is you're utilizing the service of another company based for your server. Software applications, data control. You don't need these big expensive servers to do as much as you did in the past, where it's your liability, it's on your property. There's, you got, who else is it? Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, IBM Cloud, all these cloud services. I mean, the good thing is technology is making things faster and smaller. So whereas a 5 megabyte hard drive back in the late 50s would be the size of a upright piano.
Huge.
Yeah, I mean, and I've seen pictures of guys trying to load these things up on skids and up a ramp. It's crazy. But now you can have a 1 tera. Oh, and that holds about 3 pictures in today's,
Sure.
to give you an idea. But now you can have a 1 terabyte thumb drive.
Gigantic.
No, it's
No, I mean like the space
the
on
space.
it, right?
Yes, yeah,
Huge.
it's a ton. Comparative, you go from 3 pictures to now 250,000 pictures, but it's in the palm of your hand. I mean,
Wow.
it's right there, and it's crazy how fast things have come. But that technology, data being able to be stored fairly cheaply with these services is great. And if you need more, you just pay for more. You don't have to go out, buy another hard drive, install it in your server, and now you don't have to keep building on that.
The cloud.
The cloud, yeah.
Amazing.
I mean, it's huge, and it's and I still have to explain it to people sometimes. They're like, well, we're just gonna put it all in the cloud. I'm like, okay, do you know what that
What is the
means?
cloud?
Yeah, because they're like, yeah, you
It's
just,
like Bitcoin.
yeah, there you go. So explain that. Go ahead, Casey. But and then file sharing and collaboration. You've got Google Drive, you've got Dropbox. I mean, people are able to go in and work on the same project, and kind of, there's a lot of that going on now. Online training. I mean, 70% of businesses were doing it before. It's bumped up even more. And you can pay someone for that service, or you can do it yourself. If you pay someone for it, just get ready, because it's pretty expensive, depending on what you're training for.
Sure.
But we had a roofing company, and they were paying 10, 15 grand to save or to train their employees on all the safety precautions. You watch a video, take a test. Watch a video, take a test. Well, if you're a smaller business and you can't afford that, you have YouTube, you have your smart devices. It's not that hard to record something and to give a written test, or to do a different type of survey that's emailed to them, to record that information and then just kind of do that yourself. But there's lots of opportunities for that. And then artificial intelligence is making a huge jump. So especially when it comes to security, the next gen antivirus is huge, because now you have artificial intelligence, which is it's learning as it goes. So you've got IP addresses that are malicious, like I said, with the ransomware, things that are hitting accounts constantly, and then you have those that are good, that you need access to. You don't want your email locked up every day because of it. So this artificial intelligence, and we're working on that now with some of our clients. We're getting to the point that if they were attacked and it got through, it kind of puts a wrap around the shadow copy, which is kind of a backup of a backup, so that we can have them up and running within an hour, versus trying to bring the computers in, wipe the hard disk, reload it from a backup. So it's exciting and it's awesome, but it's also the amount of technology that's moving so fast is making it more affordable for small businesses. It's very user friendly, and there's just lots of opportunity for that.
So I'm gonna ask another kind of curveball question. I'm a business owner. How do I stay current with all of that? It's so much.
Yeah, hire me. I mean, you can try to learn, and we've talked about this in the past. I mean, there's, setting news alerts on your email, getting the latest articles, following up, learning. I mean, there are whole websites dedicated to education for learning about these things. You have udemy.com, you have other platforms. LinkedIn is becoming a huge educational platform now. I mean, not only for, technology, but for businesses, for writing, all sorts, making plans, budgeting, for marketing, things like that. There's lots of opportunity out there. So, but if you're a busy business owner, like 90% of the people out there running, you got to wear a lot of hats. You have to do a lot of things. You're the accounting, the marketing, your receivables, payables. Hiring out or hiring within, there's a lot of benefits to having a team that can do that stuff for you and stay on top of it and keep you current.
And knows it well.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, you can either fix your car and trial and error it and see what happens, or you can go to a mechanic, maybe a little bit of money out of pocket, but it's going to get done right, and you've saved all that time from not having to, fix all the mistakes you made on the first time.
Great. So what tips do you have to ensure that new remote employees are fully engaged? So you mentioned that you've hired some people right through the past year that are remote. So what just tips do you have from your perspective?
So that the chat we talked about, Mattermost, Discord,
Coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Send them stuff. Hey, did you get the coffee? It's good to do that and to kind of send throughout the day. I will say some of our clients that I've talked to, they're having daily meetings, and they're not long. They're not question after question. It's a 10-minute check-in, and it's with everybody. And they're doing it over a Zoom or a Skype or a Teams, and it's, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? Who's the priority today? What happened yesterday? And then it's, let's take our quick note, kind of anchor in what we need to focus on today, and then let's move on. But I will say, don't keep it all professional. There are times where you want to keep it personal, but make time for that. Schedule it. How's your son doing? He got kicked in the head on the trampoline the other day. Is he doing okay? I mean, and I say that because that happened with us. Yeah. So I'm calling my guy. Hey, how's your boy doing? Oh, he can't chew right now. He's eating through a straw. I was like, I'm sorry. Is there anything we can do? No, he's good. We got rid of the trampoline. So I mean, there's things that you want to do to keep things personal. But the chat platform is always good.
People miss that personal part of business, right? Because we're at home staring at the four same walls with this family that we love so much, and we're so glad that we could be there with them, of course, right?
Yeah.
But there's something about coming into the office and talking with people who are in your business and they know what you're doing and engaging with them, and you have friends at work, right?
Yeah, the water cooler talk, right?
Some of the best friends that I have had have been people that I've met through my professional career.
Yeah.
And so something that our team does is a meeting weekly, and it's not a super long meeting, but the first thing we do is we talk about, hey, what did you do over the weekend? Let's talk about your fishing trip, and let's talk about how your pets are doing, how your kiddos. And that's something that really has helped keep us engaged. And the camaraderie that we're building, even though it's a little bit different than something we experienced right in 2019, because we were used to being into the office and checking in the kitchen at lunchtime and talking and catching up that way. And but I'll tell you that people that I probably wouldn't have talked to on a more regular basis because we don't do projects together, that's the way that I keep in touch with them. And so that's been huge for me as somebody who just wants to be engaged with the team that we have here.
Absolutely. I mean, there's all sorts of benefits to like you said, asking about a weekend, asking about how things went and vacations. I mean, that's how you get to know people. That's we're creatures of relationships. We have to keep that social, momentum going. But
and I think that's a really big part of you have a remote workforce. If you want to keep them engaged in your business and you don't want them to go somewhere else, then you need to figure out how to work that in as part of your strategy and your process.
Yeah, there's a loyalty benefit to that too.
Yeah.
And like they know you care, and as long as it's authentic, people can feel that and they will stick with you for a long time.
Absolutely. So we still have some time. So we've got 2 more questions to kind of cover, and then we'll open up the room for chat questions, or if we've got some people in this room that maybe want to ask some questions, we can talk about those. Some business experts say that remote work will continue.
Mm.
And I say some, and it's like pretty much everybody knows that that's going to continue now. If it wasn't happening in 2019, it's certainly happening now.
Yeah.
So what long-term changes should I make to my business to ensure success?
Yeah, so I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but the investment in IT is important. And I will say, I've read an article recently that said, managed service providers, IT companies were basically asked to save small businesses. I mean, they were tasked with, coming in and turning one business model into a completely different, and without overnight and without a missed call, without a missed email, without a missed sale, it was very intense. And the technology guys out there, the IT companies, they put their nose to the grind and they made it happen. And that's only possible with some investment and some, some effort put into making sure that, these guys have the resources they need to do that. That being said, data security is another thing. If you can't afford an IT company or a guy, definitely invest in updating your servers, your software, antivirus, setting up a firewall, protect what you have, do backups. Backups is a huge, huge thing. If you're not using or doing backups, you're giving the keys to the castle away. It's just like, okay, come on in. So don't let that happen, people. I'm telling you, it's important. But on a more practical side, there's so many opportunities. And like I said, I've got social media friends who are like, if you're going to do this yourself, just go live, go online, create tutorials, create videos, go on social media, stay relevant, get out there in front of it. And it's not going to be perfect, even if you go live and you've got a few things, but you can also interview your clients. Do that as a video. Interview the guy that runs your local gym.
Content creation.
Yeah, content creation. There's tons of resources and information on that, and we can provide all that. But do your sales online, even if you're a service. Offer a way to sell. So the guy that runs the CrossFit gym, he had to pivot huge during this whole pandemic. He had to go from people coming in daily, hands-on, to now everyone stopped coming because my gym is shut down. The mayor has closed it. I can't be open. So what do I do? So he went straight to social media. He offered a different price structure, and he provided content every day on daily workouts. And he said,
from home.
Yeah, from home. So and he modified everything. You might not have a kettlebell, but go grab a jug of water. Or you might not have weights, but go grab some cans and just do these 100 times. It was creative, and it was a way to keep some revenue. Now, did he make up for all of it? No, but he was able to keep the doors open afterwards,
which is so important.
Which is huge, and you got to be creative when things like that happen. So.
Yeah. The other thing that I'll say, just adding on to that a little bit more, is that if you're not sure what you need to do, tap into your community. Mm-hmm. That has been huge for me in my role. Looking at how do we restructure events, is reaching out to like my local chamber friend and saying, what are you doing for events and what has it worked for you? Like you're already navigating these waters. Yeah. So please just share some tips and advice, and you would be surprised at the amount of just tips and ideas that people are willing to share with you, because we're all in this boat ride together, and it's not easy, and we're paddling really hard. And so tapping into those and making friends and just offering your ideas and tips too is huge.
Yeah, and I'll add one more, because you're right, we're all in the same storm, but we're in different ships. Sure. But we're all trying to get to the same place. But chat boxes have become very popular. If you look at the statistics on texting and chatting, things like that, it's like 81% of Americans actually use texting all the time. 97% of adults use it on a weekly basis. And I think last year there were 27 trillion texts that were sent out. And I have 2 teenage daughters, so I'm pretty sure half of those are theirs. So I'm glad we aren't charged per text anymore. I'd be in trouble. Yeah, thank God. But make that, give the people what they want. Even if it's an artificial intelligence response chat box that guides them to the resources and the information they have, which those services are out there too. And again, if you don't have something that is, to where communication is happening through chat, you're going to lose clients. You're going to lose customers, because people will only wait on hold for so long. Automated phone lines are great. you know, in certain situations, not great if you're trying to make a sale. And you have to prioritize that. And if it's information that someone wants, you've got to be able to give it to them when they want it. So.
And meeting people where they are. I mean, we
Yes.
can talk about that. But if I have to search for a really long time, or if the consumer has to search for a long time to try and figure out how to work with you, and it's not easy, I'll just go to your neighbor next door, and they're easier to work with, and that's what I'm gonna go for.
That happens. Yeah.
Last question, and then we'll open up for questions.
Sure.
Other tips, strategies, resources that business owners should know to strengthen their technology strategy.
Yeah. So I'll give one that's not really a technological answer, and then one that is.
Okay.
But one, I don't know, Gary Vaynerchuk. He's an author. He wrote, I think it was called Thank You Nation, or what was it called? Thank You Economy. Thank You Economy. Good book. He's an entrepreneur. He took his family's wine business from 5 million to 60 million in like a few years. But he has come out in the last few years, and it may not have been his idea, but he's like, assign somebody as your chief heart officer, someone who kind of has their pulse on the employee morale. Especially after this last year. I mean, we're talking people were like this, you know, we're going back to work, wear masks now. Now we have to quarantine because someone may have had it that was 4 doors down. And I mean, it's been stressful. So just asking how someone is doing, and like we talked about it, you know, getting to know people, but just asking how they're doing means a lot to someone who was really waiting for someone to ask them that question. And it means so much to that person that someone cares enough to say, you know, not work, but how's your personal life? How are things going? Are you okay? You know, without probing too deep, you let them answer how they want, but then you let them know that you're here for them, and you know, let it be. And even if you change it up, make someone a chief heart officer 1 month, and next month let somebody else kind of, you know, fill it out and be the person to kind of, you know, just talk to people and let them know. On the technical side, again, voice over IP is something we got into in the last year with people working remote. You know, cell phones, a lot of people have personal cell phones, but they want their work phone totally separate from their cell phone. Well, with a voice over IP, basically you're using the internet as your phone, and we can set those up, and other companies can set those up to where you can take a phone from work, you take it home to your house in your office or wherever you're working. As long as you can plug into an internet or Wi-Fi, your phone is set up exactly as it was in the office. So you can hit extensions, you can get calls that are coming in, you can call out and it shows the number of your business, but keeping that as an option, and it saves 30 to 50% on the kind of the standard regular phone companies of what they're charging you. So the phones are a little expensive on the front end, but it normally takes about a year to recoup that cost. And after that, your voice over IP cost is fairly low. And it's a great way to keep the continuity of, even if someone can't be in the office, but they want that professional phone system and answering, and trying to answer live is always, I mean, it's always the best thing to do in my opinion, but
Sure.
it's a great way to keep the, you know, communication up.
Great. Wonderful answers. I feel like we talked about so
A lot of
many
info.
resources, and that's great. Again, we will follow up with a list of resources and links that you can check out. If you've got questions, I'm sure Nate is willing to talk to you more about IT stuff and
Sure.
technology and data quality and all of those things. But now we're going to open up the room for any questions, and we'll give them a minute to kind of filter those in. And if we don't have any, then we'll end a little bit early.
Sure. I've got actually 2 questions.
Yeah.
The first one being, as we have been in a more kind of remote work environment, people, and I think this came up a lot more at the beginning of the quarantine as people are trying to figure it out, but it still is relevant today with so many people working from home. A lot of managers, presidents, CEOs have asked, like, how do I track people's productivity? Like, I want to know their keystrokes. And so while there may be some positions where that's a necessary kind of step to take, what would your recommendations be as far as, you know, technology, collecting that kind of data, looking at their productivity over long periods of time? Like, what would be a realistic expectation for people to track and or like implement within their office environment?
I would start on, and I would come from a small business perspective first. Be realistic in expectations, but set the expectation. As a small business, if you're giving someone an assignment or a project, it needs a deadline. It needs to be set and it needs to be followed up. There should be benchmarks, and that kind of stuff you can follow up on and make sure it's being done. And that can be phone calls, check-ins, things like that. There is software out there that will count keystrokes, that will track time. Again, a lot of these chats allow you to clock in and clock out. And all you have to do is go, I mean, you can set up so many different rooms for so many different purposes that you just tell your employees, we're going to have you, go to this section of our chat. This is where you're going to clock in, clock out. We're going to keep in front of you with chat throughout the day. We're going to know if you're working on things. And I think, there are companies out there, HR companies, that offer kind of tracking on your cell phone. They can tell, especially if you're going back to work, where you are in the building, kind of what productivity output you're doing. We don't deal a whole lot with that in our industry because it's very, small and medium-sized businesses that are more focused on the result rather than the process. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Did you have another question?
Yep, I've got one more question that came through. So the other question is, as you're talking about phones and answering phones and with people working remotely, have you seen companies move to a more of a like virtual assistant automated answering service so that it's not dependent upon like one person being at their cell phone using the voice over IP all the time? Like,
Right.
What have people started utilizing in order to accommodate a live person answering the phone?
We make sure the option is there, but only after so many rings. And after so many rings, it will move to maybe another person. Now, again, you don't want the phone ringing too long. A few rings, and again, people lose interest. But the end goal is to really try to answer your phone line if you can. If not, then yeah. But is there a big trend? I haven't seen it yet. Again, everybody's working inside. Yeah, I mean, they're there with all their technology. There really shouldn't be a whole lot of gap of where they're located versus how phones are being answered, because everyone's got their technology right there. But that being said, I'm sure there are instances where it's very helpful to have an automated system that can get you to where you need to go. But again, those turn into such a long process. I mean, if you've ever tried to call your credit card company and get some information, it's not easy. Or your cell phone company, it takes multiple calls to multiple different, and if they transfer you to the wrong person, you got to start all over again. So yeah, so those are frustrating. But and again, you get to a certain size that's just the way business is done. But our goal is always try to get the phone answered within 3 rings. And if it doesn't, if it's after hours, again, someone's calling back within 7 minutes is kind of our key, indicator of keeping things responsive and keeping communication up. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
One last question. Dashboards.
Mm-hmm.
With increasing technology utilized across the different platforms, what kind of key indicators have you seen people start to utilize, or dashboards that they're now looking at to see things like phone calls or emails or productivity or occurrences of meetings? Just what kind of KPIs should businesses track or think about as they're trying to look at this remote workforce?
Yeah, you find that a lot in sales. The sales process, how many calls are made, how long were the calls, specific software, things like that. I don't have any off the top of my head. I mean, I know they're out there. The marketing company we use, they have a very sophisticated, it's tied into their CRM. You want to see activity, obviously, and again, that's where you want to give your sales team or your customer care team an expectation of this many should be done in a week or a day. Are we meeting that? If not, let's have a meeting. Let's go through that. But I think every industry is different. It just depends on what you're selling, what you're doing, what service you're offering. I mean, if it's a technical support company, they're going to be on the phone a lot longer than someone who's trying to make a sale and who's going through tons and tons of calls every day, getting someone on the phone. I mean, if it's more than 3 minutes, then they're on the phone and they're trying to sell. But if it's a technical issue, you're going to be on the phone 15, 20 minutes, and it's just totally different. So, yeah.
Great. Well, I don't think that we have any more questions, but I know that we talked about a whole lot, and I'll link some resources and a follow-up email to attendees today about some things that we talked about on BBB side, some things that we talked about and different blogs and things that you can check out if you want to learn a little bit more about some of the content covered today. I don't think that all of it probably, but you can definitely reach out to us in a one-on-one, and we're happy to connect you to resources or help in any way that we can. And this was also recorded, so we're happy to share that out as well once we finalize that and get it edited and those types of things. We thank you so very much for logging on today. We hope this information was valuable and helps you better your business, if you will. And we will see you next month for our next Trust Talk, hopefully. And we've got a lot of exciting things and events, so I'll include some of that information as well. But thanks for logging on today, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.